see behind me I have a box here that says Arccaptain. I also have another box, has an Arccaptain logo on it, and that is a welding hood. And I have a box of flux core welding wire, and that box is a MIG 200. Just to show you what they sent, this is some gasless flux core welding wire, 0.030, and this is like a 2-pound roll of wire. This is the auto darkening helmet. Now, I have used much more complicated helmets than this, but we're going to open it up and get a look at it and see, what the parameters are. But at this point, we need to open up this one. So again, Arccaptain MIG 200. It's an inverter welder. There's a pretty fancy looking diagram there on the side. See-through drawing, let's say. So let's open up this box. So now you know I have not opened any of this stuff, for sure. You can hear that cardboard break? Okay. So, big piece of foam up here on top. I have to remember how this is packed. So, there's the ground cable. That was in the front. Here is your argon gas hose, or argon CO2. In the back here, there's a conventional stick welder stinger. And on the side is, well, you know what? I've heard somebody else call these a whip, so I'm going to call it a whip. Here you go. It's a whip. This is your regular MIG type welding gun. And it has a 110 or 120, 240 adapter, right? So this will weld 110, or with the adapter 220. Take that out of the box. There's also a bag of accessories. So it looks like some roller wheels, some welding tips, probably some other adapters in there. And the instructions. I'm actually going to look at those instructions, by the way. I know, I don't always do that. And that's it. So there it is, empty box. All right. That's a pretty nice looking machine. Let's take a closer look at it. What do you say? So let's start with the basics. In the back here, on-off switch, that has become, I think, the standard in Europe. In the US, most of our welders have a switch on the front. So this is in the back, pretty easy to find. You can reach your hand around this corner, and there it is. This is your gas inlet, and this is your power cord, which does have a 220 outlet end on it. This one's tied in a knot, so I'm just gonna have to rip that one open. And so 220, that's with the one wide tang, narrow tang, and the adapter gets you down to 110. Closed side, nice red panel, Arccaptain, some other information there. On the front here, if I can get all this in the frame, let's say, have not turned it on, but it has a series of knobs here. Obviously you can fine tune different things. This one says hard soft. This has A, that would be amperage, and V for voltage. You've got a mode button, and I'll have to look these up and see what these are. This may deal with like wire size. This is synergic welding. Here's like a play button. Down here, I believe this is a, I think 6-in-1 type of welder, as they call it. Alright, so in the book it says function overview. Synergic MIG, automatic matching of the voltage and wire speed by adjusting wire diameter, material, and gas. 6-in-1 multi-functions. Gas MIG, gasless MIG, MMA, TIG/spot welding /spool gun are available. So apparently this has a spool gun capability to where you can do aluminum welding. And I think that's what this is for right here. I think that's what that's for. Actually, maybe this one. I'm sorry. This is for the spool gun. This would be for the TIG control, I believe. I do not have those accessories, so I can't demonstrate that. However, I can show you the MIG functions and the functions of the machine itself. So let's turn it on. See what happens. Alright, first thing I noticed was right there it says 110 volts, so it knows that it's only powered up to 110. Okay, so that got quiet, just came on for a second. Alright, so here on the front we have 15 different indicators on the screen right here. So number 1 is digital screen display area. Number 2 is parameter setting and display area for spot welding, time, parameter group storage, voltage, and so on. And that's this button. Welding process selection area, that's 3. So you got a mode button. Okay, so here's lighting these up. When you flip this switch, there it's MMA, which is stick welding. Gives you a voltage indication and amperage of 100, and that goes to 135. Voltage looks like 69 is probably the max. It doesn't change there, so you can change this parameter on the right. Okay. Mode button again takes you to TIG, and if I know or if I remember, this is a lift arc TIG. So it's not like I don't know if it has an actual pedal. I'm not familiar with that setup, but it does have a TIG function. There is MIG, and that is MIG. That's with gas. So go back to this one. That should be, I believe that's the flux core button there, and that looks like it's the regular gas one. Let's see. 5 is voltage and spot welding time adjustment. That's what this button or this knob does. Number 6 is current and wire feed speed adjustment. So this changes your wire speed, and I believe this registers in meters per minute, just so you know. So that's your wire speed and or amperage. Number 7, Euro connector for torch. Okay, so we'll look at that. That's the MIG hookup as well. Number 9 is a polarity changeover plug, and that's here in the middle, so it can either go on the left or the right, and of course your ground will hook up to that as well. Number 10 is a synergic selection button, so that is that right there. And I see this number in the middle. I'm not sure what that is exactly just yet. It says 0.8. That's probably the wire diameter, and that may change with another button. MIG operation mode selection area, that's number 11. So I have to figure out what those symbols mean. That's like it looks like an arrow pointing up and down. So that may be the two-touch, two-touch, four-touch function. I don't know for sure. Have to figure that out. 12 is MIG material selection. Okay, so you can have it with gas, flux. That's CRNI. I don't know if that's what that symbol is. There is AIMG, straight arrow, and that's CO2. Looks like straight CO2. Yeah, and that's a mix. So it lets you change those parameters. There's 5 different settings there. 13, inductance adjustment knob. So that'll have to be set up probably with one of the other functions. I may not have it on the right mode at the moment. And that's where it says hard soft. 14 is a socket for the spool gun. That is right there. And 15 is the output terminal. So this has a negative over here on this side and a positive on this side. That is with the polarity whenever you're using different functions. So that's the basic overview of the switch panel on the front. Then on the side, inside the side box here, we have, whoa! Okay, that caught me off guard. That caught me completely off guard. There's a light in here. There's a light. All right, you get points for that, Arccaptain. You get points for that. I've never seen a light inside of a welder. Bonus points. Wow. Okay. Is that on all the time? Is that one of those things where it's like, does the light go out when you have the refrigerator open? You know what? It's on all the time. I can see it. It's on all the time. There's a light. Who knew? I didn't know. Okay. So inside, of course, we have where you hook on your roll of wire, your spool of wire, and normally I don't do flux core. I do regular wire, but it's got a nice carrier there. Oh, and it does have the little cleat on this carrier to keep the spool rotating so it doesn't slip. Okay, that's pretty nice. Got that knob, which is your tensioner. You can adjust tension on the wire itself. Down here you have your roller. Now, the other welders that I've used, I've had some conflict with because I pointed out I did not like this roller is like tucked up underneath the side panel. So Arccaptain gets a bonus for that. It's out in the open and I can access it. It does have a roller wheel on it. That's 0.8 and 1.0. I'll have to look it up. That's metric, of course, and I forget what the parameters are on those exactly. So there's that. I like that this is nice, easy, open access. I can't get over. It's got a light in there. It's got another roller wheel here, and we'll have to cut that loose. That's a little bit smaller in shape, or in size, let's say. And then down below here, this is kind of cool, I guess. Down below here has a setup guide. So changing polarity tells you this is a ground and positive and negative. DCEN, no gas. DCEP, gas. So for the regular MIG setup, it's talking about having a positive, the whip, let's say, attached to the positive side and the ground cable hooked to the negative. And I'm guessing with the flux core, you're inverted of that by what I'm reading. This setup information is intended to act as a guide only. Please refer to operating manual for further information. So here it gives you these dimensions. Okay. So it gives you flow rates, gas types, polarity, drive roller, V-groove, wire type, and then wire size. So it goes 0.8 or 0.6, 0.8, 0.9, 1.0, and back into that same scenario. I don't know what VWFS is. Material thickness 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, 3, 4, 5 millimeter, and that's for steel. Down here is stainless, and down here is aluminum. Cool. That's nice. That's nice. It also has a little ground wire over here on the side, grounding the door to the main panel. So, yeah, that's cool. I did not. I'm still. There's a light in there. I don't believe that. So what I need to do is a little more reading on the manual, of course, and I need to get some wire on this, and we're going to do some test runs and see how well it operates. So before I get into actual welding, let's go over some of the other stuff that's in the box. So there's this little kit bag that has this little wrench tool. Also in that kit bag is a welding tip. This one is .040. So I'm assuming that is for the aluminum function, like if you're going to be feeding aluminum wire through the whip. It also shows that this has a tool opening that you can take that tip loose. So that's kind of handy. The other bag had a set of accessories. So there's a new insert that holds the tips that comes with it, and a new shield that comes with it as well. There were other tips in that kit, .035, .030, and those relate as in .035 is the same as 0.9 millimeter, and .030 is 0.8 millimeter. Along with that, we have a couple more rollers. This one specifically says 0.9 on one side and 1.0 on the other, and it has a V indicator on it. So I'm not sure what that means exactly, because these other ones, this has .030 or 0.8, and they both have a U. So there may be some branding that I'm just not familiar with the U. I'm just assuming that's your regular roller for your metal wire. And then this one just has a straight up 0.8 on it and straight up 1.0, but it's serrated. So that's meant to be pushing rod or wire through the gun. More than likely I'm not going to be using that one at all. Other than that, we have the end of the whip, as we're calling it. You have the shield, and this doesn't have a threaded end on it. It has kind of this spring deal that I showed with that other tip. So that you just rotate this on and off. And then as well, you can take that little wrench, take that tip loose. Now this tip is, I'm not sure what the size is, looks like 0.08. Yeah, this is a 30 thousandths wire tip. So I'm just going to leave that one in there. You know, typically I run 0.023 when I do sheet metal. Sometimes 0.035, I think is the other, 30 is the other one. But anyway, it comes with that in it. And then I'm not exactly sure how this comes off. I know that there is a flange down inside there, but I don't know what the access is. I guess I could slide that back. I could slide the rubber back to get that loose. So for now I'm just going to leave this tip in here. And other than that, we have the connecting end that only lines up one way. So you want to make sure you get that in there right. And that has a collared nut on it, holds that in place. And one other thing I want to show you, because it has the ground clamp and these pin connectors, let's say, big plugs. So whenever you're using, in this case, MIG, this lead out of the center goes to the stinger, or the whip, let's say. So you want that on the positive side, which is down here on the left as you're looking at it, I guess. And the ground goes in this other side. Now these work fine, but what I've learned from my experience with other machines is these can come loose. So anytime you put these in, it's just you're just turning it, and you can put some load on it to make it hold, but it can work itself loose. So when you're doing this one in particular, I'll move this out of the way. When you're putting the one in that is connected to the machine, I like to put a reverse twist on it so that it forces it to stay into that opening. So if I turn this back enough to where I can get it in, now that's going to stay no matter what. You can do the same with the ground, but just know anytime you use one of these machines, any manufacturer that uses these, make sure you have these locked in before you get started. I've had issues with that connector coming loose on another machine, a plasma cutter, and it caused problems. So make a note of that. So I want to go over some of the other details with these buttons and switches and knobs. But let me turn the machine on. You'll see that it's going to light up, and then the fan will kick on. Now, from what the instructions tell me, that fan only runs when it's necessary. So down below the screen there's an air vent that pushes air out, and there's a fan on the back that's pulling air in. So there you can see the fan shuts off. Now these buttons and switches, I went over some of that previously. I looked over some of these controls a little bit more to try to have a better understanding of what all this does. So as I mentioned before, this V voltage button or knob, you can change these parameters, right? And I already mentioned it's 110 volt because that's what I have it powered up to. So that changes those parameters. This changes your wire speed, and it's meters per minute, as I mentioned previously. But I was trying to figure out, because this has SMV, right? So S is spot welding time, M says parameter group storage LED, and V is voltage parameter LED. And I couldn't get it to go to the S. All I could get was the M and the V. So I was like, what is going on? Well, the button on the right over here, this is your 2-touch, 4-touch button, and also sets it up for your spot welding. Now I've never had a machine where it just did actual spot welding, but if you hit this button, that's 2-touch. 2-touch means the whip operates, you squeeze the trigger and it runs. You let off and it shuts off. 4-touch means you can squeeze the trigger, let go, it's going to keep feeding wire and welding until you squeeze the trigger and let go again. That means 4-touch. Then this button goes again, and it gives you these 3 little dots down here. Now you get the spot weld function. So there's the SMV. So that's how you get to that function of the machine. So we're not going to worry about that. I'm just showing you some information here. The SYN Synergic button, as I mentioned before, that is kind of more of an automatic function. And then, as I had also mentioned before, this button sets up your different parameters. So this is your stick, this is your TIG, this is, it says MIG spool gun is what that means. So MIG and spool gun. And then this one is straight MIG. And that's whenever you get these choices over here to change your gas. See, it doesn't show that with the spool gun. And there it changes. Then this again is your wire diameter. So that goes up to 0.10, which is the 40. 0.6 is probably the 0T3 wire. 0.8 is the 30 thousandths. 0.9 is the 35 thousandths. So some good information that I'm finding on function. I already went over the 2-touch, 4-touch, and there it says the spot welding deal. The wire diameters, got that. And then the material selection button here, that is talking about what your MIG material selection area is, what that is saying, but here it breaks down into the different gases, and basically it's saying FeCO2 is steel with 100% I guess CO2. Fe mix is steel with argon CO2. This shows that it's 80-25, and I know in most cases we get 75-25, I think is what our mix is. Flux, of course, CRNI, if you can see that, that is stainless steel with argon 98%, CO2 at 22%, and AIMG, which is aluminum magnesium alloy. So I'm not going to be able to demonstrate those, but I can do the mix. Now the other thing is, again, voltage, and then also this has, you can program it for different different settings. Like this has 0 through 9, and you can pre-program your numbers. So let's just say like let me go back to that. I'm at 1 and I want to change the parameter and have it be at 109 amps. That'll keep it there and next time I come back. So I don't really use preset functions like that, but it's just showing you have those available. And then this inductance knob down here, it says adjust soft or hard arc characteristics in MIG in all modes. I'm not overly familiar with that as far as how that functions. So at this point, I'm all done looking at this. I'm going to set up and do some welding and get everything connected, and we'll go from there. So here's something that verifies what I was saying earlier. On the drive wheels, this says V groove, so it has a V, and this says U groove, and this one says knurled, which is what I talked about earlier. So the aluminum uses the U groove, and the steel all uses the V groove, except for this, which is flux core, I guess. It says no gas, and that is basically what I have right here. I don't know what the number is on this, if that corresponds. It says ER, but I'm going to, oh, they're E71TGS, E71TGS, and that's saying use the knurled. So that's, there you go, there's some good information. That's 30 thousandths thick on this box. So I'm going to run this wire through, and I need to put in the knurled knob or wheel. Let's see where that's at. So here is that roller wheel with the knurled or teeth in it, and when you put this on, this says 1.0 on one side and 0.8 on the other. So you want to make sure, basically, this one's saying 0.8, right? So the 0.8 has to go on the inside. You look at it, you put that on the inside. So that goes in. Now another thing I want to show you as well, I may not have covered this exactly as I should have. This carrier, if you look at that and you look at this packaging, you can see, maybe see, that on the inside this has a small diameter to fit over this. So basically you have to take this nut off, which is a little bit hard to get to. I think the nut, they could have made that nut deeper. You have a lot of room in here, so that nut could have been made with a bigger flange on it or a deeper flange, because this takes a little effort to get this off. See what I mean? So that could have been much deeper to be able to get a hold of it easier, because there's plenty of room behind this. There's a spring in here, and you can see the sequence there. So you'll make sure you don't lose any of that. There's a white ring, a black plastic piece, and this corresponding piece, and that all goes in like that. So we're going to set that aside and open up this roll. And of course, I'm going to have to cut the end of it off to be able to get it to feed. So there's the end. And I don't want to, well, yeah, I can cut it off now. It's fine. It fits on there. And you may end up, now that I look at it, you probably have to use these other pieces to hold all that in place. I don't know if you need the spring, but it takes up some of the slack. I don't think there's enough room for that white piece. And then we'll feed it into the drive mechanism, let's say. I'm telling you, that light is a big plus. Okay. You turn the machine on. And I'm going to pull the trigger. So apparently it must idle out if you're not using it, and basically do kind of a shutdown. I squeezed the trigger and it went a little bit of a distance and then shut off. Now that I turned it back on, it's going to feed. Now the one thing I need to check this, because I did not verify this tip size. I don't want to feed it into the wrong size tip. So I'm just going to take that tip back off and feed it through. I actually turned up the amperage knob and I feel it coming through the end here. There it is. Okay, that was the right size tip. We're good. Alright, let's do some welding. So let's set up the machine for flux core, and to do that you need to put the ground on the positive side and the whip lead on the negative side. Turn that on. I do have it set on flux 0.09, which is the wire, and I just have it on max to 120 on the amps. So that puts the voltage at 17.6. So let's see what happens. I've got a piece of scrap here, cleaned it up a little bit, and let's go. Okay, that did really well. And again, that's a really high setting. Wow, that's a really nice weld. That is a really nice weld. So yeah, that did a good job. Let's try one more thing with that. I'm going to turn it down a bit. So it's down to 100 on the amps. I've got a piece of scrap metal here. I'm just going to weld that on there. See how that goes. That's a nice weld. That'll work. Alright. Flux core definitely works. Let's move on. Okay, so you're in for a treat. I have not done stick welding since I was probably 18 years old. It's been a while, but I want to try it. What I do like about this book is it points out sketch map of MMA welding, right? So it gives you a little diagram, shows you the ground is on what is on the right, and then the stinger is on the left as we're looking at the picture. It does that for each one of these. So when you look at the MIG welding, again it shows the ground on the right, the whip, and then the connector going into the opposite side, and then also gasless MIG welding, so it shows the connector from the main center post going to the right and the ground on the left. So I do like that they show you those little diagrams. This even shows you a setup for doing TIG welding. So I have connected it with the stick, and like I said, I have not done stick welding In I don't know, 38 years. I don't know what the math is. Gonna turn this machine back on. And I have to set the parameters. So let me just angle over there a little bit. Maybe you can see that. We go to the mode, MMA. I have really no idea what I want to set this at. So I'm going to just set it at 90 right now. I happen to have some rod. Some welding rod. This is a 6013, I believe. I only bought it because it was on the discount aisle at Harbor Freight. So, you know, like I said, it's been quite some time since I've done stick welding. So I need to get this in here. It's got little slots cut into this so you can have it at different angles. I'm going to go with almost a 90 degree. See if that works. You know, the funny part is when I welded as a teenager, my dad didn't have welding helmets with the headpiece in it. So I learned to weld by holding the shield every time I welded. So I'd hold my left hand. I had a habit of doing that for a very long time. I would grab that shield even with the headpiece on. So let's see if this works. Well, that's not bad, considering I haven't had a stick in my hand in a very, very, very long time. I'll take it. Let's just look at that a little closer. I can't complain, honestly. That's the first time since I was 18. I'm 56 years old. Very happy with that. Alright, what I did was I hooked up my gas bottle and I went through my settings, and so I had to change this from the flux core back to FE mix, and that allowed me to change the thickness of the welding wire. So I'm using 0.6, which is the same as 0.023 or 0.25, and I have it set on MIG over here. So again, we have these varying settings we can do on the voltage and the amperage. So I'm going to leave it set pretty high. Normally I wouldn't weld this heavy steel with the 0.23 or 0.25 unless that's all I had, and in this case that's where I'm at. I do have some heavier wire, but I have this smaller diameter is more accessible. So all I want to do on this is I'll throw just a weld bead on here just to see what it looks like. Make sure I have gas. That's not cool. I'm out of welding gas. Not good. Okay. I know where I'm going. I have gas. I have gas. Just saying that. Alright, let's go. Wonderful. That. Now again, we're on thick metal, but look at that. That's a really nice weld. Yep. Okay. I'm going to try something. I've got this piece of scrap from the Mustang project, and I just want to try to weld this edge together. I don't know what the parameters are, but I'm going to hit Synergic on this, and we'll see what happens. First, I want to try to weld this bare area right here, get a feel for it. Oh, I get hooked to the ground, but sorry, ground's not on it. Okay, that is super hot. I'm going to turn that down. So I turned down the wire speed to 6 and the volts to 11. Let's see what that does. That's too cold. So we'll turn it up a little. Turn up the voltage to 13 and the wire speed 6.5. Wire speed's too fast. Turn that down to 4. A little on the hot side. And down to 12 on the voltage. That's not bad. That's not bad. See if I can't tack this together over here. That's not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad. So as with any of this stuff, you're going to end up grinding down the high stuff. Good penetration. That works pretty well. And that's, you know, when I was showing these different settings over here, that's when you need to experiment a little bit. Adjust one, you know, back and forth, and you get a feel for it. So if it's kind of fighting to shoot in there, your speed's too fast, or your heat's too low. So you got to just kind of go back and forth. One more thing I want to experiment with is the spot welding function. So let me get that set up and we'll see how that works. Alright, so I have it set on the spout weld feature. That's with the 3 dots on the side over there. I don't know if you can see it very well. But basically what I see it doing is it operates for a few seconds, puts down a spot weld, and then stops. So I'm going to just hold the trigger on and show you that. Okay, so that's all it does. I'm holding the trigger on. I let off the trigger. Come back in. So essentially what it's telling you is you can have the machine control your timing on the spot weld as to how long you're gonna it's gonna do a spot weld. Like when I did these over here, I controlled it on, off, on, off. This, it just does it on for a period of time, and there's probably some parameters built in the machine that you can change the settings as far as timing. Now I did experiment a little bit with the voltage. I'm going to turn that up 16, the wire speed 4.7, so just to see what it does. So That's pretty much it. It does a short spot weld. You know what? That's actually a pretty cool feature. That's actually a pretty cool feature. So I was going over that a little with that spot weld function, and I could see that being very handy. So, okay, I'll give you a thumbs up on that. All right. I think that's about it. So there you have it. I demonstrated the functions of the machine. I showed you the flux core, the stick welding, which I haven't done actually since probably 1990. Haven't done stick welding, and of course the MIG welding, the spot weld function. I can't show you the TIG function or anything else associated with that because I just don't have the equipment. But I think for general purpose welding and doing automotive stuff like this, this will be a fine machine. Now, you've probably seen me use other welding machines, and I've used a variety of things over the years. I can tell you I'm not under contract with anybody. Nobody. I've never done that. So if I'm telling you that I like something, it's because I like it. It's not because I'm being paid to do something like that. I will have more videos coming out on the Mach 1. As I've said before, I was off last week, so I didn't make any videos. And this week has been kind of a rough start for me. But that's okay. I was able to make this video, and now we can move on. Thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.